So here we go with the fifth instalment, evidencing exactly what Michael Massey knew as the race director. This one is the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix held in Bahrain. So in 2020, there were two Grand Prix held in Bahrain. This was on a shortened version of the track. For those who remember it, I believe it's the one where Lewis Hamilton had tested positive for COVID, wasn't allowed to race, and hence George Russell, who was a Williams driver, got promoted to drive for Mercedes in that race, and a lad called Jack Aitken substituted in for George Russell to drive the Williams. Now, with it being Bahrain, I'm sure there'll be people in the comment section that will tell us who infringed track limits at this event and what penalties they received. I look forward to your comments in the comment section. Now, if you're able to watch this on a big screen, please do so, because there's a lot of information that I need to talk you through. There's a lot that's going on this one, and I need to explain to you what's going on. And if you can see it on a bigger screen, your understanding will be a lot greater. We're on lap 58 of 87, and I just want you to first listen to what Crofty and Brundle are describing at this moment in time. Remember, this is what Crofty and Brundle know as well. We have these commentators. People say, oh, they're just giving their opinion. They've been doing this job for, in the case of Crofty, over 10 years. In the case of Brundle, now, over 28 years. They know what they're talking about. They know the situation. If you don't know what you're doing after that length of time doing it, then clearly you're lacking in brain cells. They do know, but what they do is they present what they're paid to present, and they hype everything up. But listen to what he says.
So Sainz and Ricciardo, Martin, both losing out in that pit stop, and the Racing Points now running third and fifth. That battle for the third place in the Constructors' Championship, and we keep saying it, worth third to fifth, difference of about $10 million. Well, it's swinging after it went away from them last week, Racing Point's way.
Yeah, it's really coming to them, isn't it? Their car's been so fast down the straight.
So he's talking about third to fifth position in the Constructors' Championship. And that is currently being contested by the Racing Point, which are the pink blocks here of Perez and Stroll. Renault, which is the yellow of Ocon and Ricciardo, and orange, which is the McLarens of Sainz and Norris. So those three constructors are all competing for third, fourth and fifth in the Constructors' Championship, and the prize money difference is in the region of $10 million, depending on whether you finish third or fifth, and that's a significant enough swing, something you want to compete for. And this is what Brundle and Crofty are talking to us about. They're explaining to the global viewing audience this is one of the dynamics that's in play within Formula One racing. They're explaining that to people. They know this. They're demonstrating. They know that these are the sorts of things that are constant considerations within the sport of Formula One. Now on lap 60, they cut to Ted Kravitz in the pits. We're talking now about Lando Norris. Lando Norris in 11th position, having been lapped. Pierre Gasly, 10th position, not yet lapped. Now, if you can look at the bottom of the screen, this bar here, over at the left-hand side of the bar is the start point of the lap. And as you go along the line, it shows you the relative positions of each of the cars as they go around the lap. And this is when you get over to the right-hand side of that line, that's you coming around to the end of the lap. And then when you start the next lap, your dot appears back over on this left-hand side, and you continue across the screen like that. So if we look at the leader, which is George Russell, he is where I'm trying to wave my cursor at the moment, the greeny Petronas green dot of George Russell. Behind him, to the left there, is Valtteri Bottas in second, and then behind Bottas is the orange dot of Norris. So Norris is in 11th, he's been lapped. Okay, if you just look ahead of George Russell, though, to the right of George Russell is Pierre Gasly. So, whilst the leaders of Russell and Bottas have overtaken Norris and are tracking down Gasly to do the same to overtake Gasly, Norris is still attempting to try and catch Gasly himself. Just because he has been passed by Russell and Bottas does not mean that he has been eliminated from the race. Formula One does not work that way. It does not work that way. Okay? If it did, these drivers would be fighting to the death to make sure they weren't lapped. Okay? What happens if the leaders come up behind you? You get a blue flag. You get told to move out the way because a faster car is coming by. So you get out the way. You don't fight that, but you're still allowed to fight for the guy that is in front of you, okay, who's just a bit further up the road. So just because you've been lapped by the leader does not mean your race is over. You're still in the race. You're still there to compete. You're still trying to compete for a point scoring position. Listen to what Kravitz has been reporting back from the pits.
But Lando Norris has been sold the situation loud and clear from the McLaren pit wall. He said, okay, this is it, Lando. Having taken advantage of the virtual safety car, this is our race now. We need flat out laps, he's being told from his engineer, from now until the end. He's closing on Pierre Gasly in front of him for P10, and he just has to see what he can do. So not so much last lap Lando, but last, what have we got left? 30 laps, yeah. Lando.
Okay. So they believe that Norris should be able to catch Gasly, maybe even the car in front of that, who knows, okay? But they are still competing for that championship point, which is going to contribute to the McLaren total for the season and give them points for the Constructors' Championship. Sky Sports know all this, yet there was no mention of each of the teams and how they were affected in Abu Dhabi. None whatsoever. Okay, we're now on lap 61. If you look over to the right hand side of the bar at the bottom of the screen, you've got Kevin Magnussen coming through to complete the lap, and then you've got Jack Aitken, the blue dot there. Now that car is just about to spin off the track and lose its nose cone. So if I play this through,
Fernando Alonso watching on from the Renault garage. He'll be racing, of course, next season for the Renault team. He'll be testing for them in Abu Dhabi in the young driver test, in inverted commas, at the end of the season, getting a feel for what life is like back at Renault. Of course, will be Alpine for next season. There's a front wing.
Okay, so I'll show you a picture of what's going on. Jack Aitken has spun. He's hit this orange end of the tyre barriers, and it's clipped off his front wing, and it's left his front wing on the track along with some shards of carbon fibre by the looks of things. Okay, so that's what happened. I've showed it to you as a screenshot as opposed to anything else, so it doesn't get in breach of copyright. And I'll switch to tracker view from now on for a period. But just before I do, just bear in mind, look at this situation. We've got Norris has been lapped. He's in 11th. Vettel, 12th. He's been lapped. Giovinazzi, been lapped. Magnussen, been lapped. Raikkonen, been lapped. Aitken. So he then pits and will be lapped twice. Fittipaldi lapped twice. Okay, so 11th downwards have been lapped. Aitken will be being lapped twice as George Russell goes by the pits. He will lap Aitken whilst Aitken is in the pits. Fittipaldi has been lapped twice. So I'll switch to tracker view. I just pegged it back 10 seconds. Showing Aitken's car on track there, but you'll see him disappear off to the pits, and you will see Russell here and Gasly coming down towards turn 10, you'll see what happens with them.
Testing for them in Abu Dhabi in the young driver test, in inverted commas, at the end of the season, and getting a feel for what life is.
So Aitken's blue dot has just disappeared. He was fortunate, he was pretty much at the pit entrance, so able to disappear straight into the pits. Russell and Gasly are now on the start-finish straight, and what will be happening is, firstly, there would have been yellow flags at the scene, and then it's down to race control to decide whether they're going to deal with the incident with either yellow flags, whether it will require a virtual safety car, or whether it will actually need a full safety car to actually clear up the incident.
Is like back at Renault, who of course will be Alpine for next season. There's a front wing lost by Jack Aitken.
We're going to need a safety car then to clear that away, I think. I think I saw it on the exit of the last corner there.
Okay, you're seeing there George Russell overtake Pierre Gasly going into turn 1. So now Pierre Gasly, who is in 10th position, has been lapped.
There it is. So either a VSC if there's enough of a gap around the track.
It is a VSC.
It is a VSC.
Okay, so initially the decision is VSC, virtual safety car, meaning no overtaking, and all the drivers have got to maintain the gaps between each other, but all of them have got to drive to a set delta, which is a significantly slower speed. That creates a safer situation because the speeds are slower. However, if people are required to go onto the track, if a marshal is required to go onto the track, is there a window of opportunity to get onto the track, pick up what's required, and off the track before the next car arrives? And if there's not that window, what you need to do is actually deploy the safety car to ensure that the field bunches, so that it then creates a big window where there's no cars coming by. Now, if you look at around this tracker view where all these dots are located, there isn't a big window between when one car comes by and when the next car comes by. Between Vettel and Giovinazzi, so Vettel at turn 11 and Giovinazzi halfway down the straight between 10 and 9. And then between Giovinazzi and Perez, who's a bit further back at, around about between turns 9 and turn 8. There might be around about 10 seconds. But that still isn't long enough for a marshal to go onto track, pick up what's required, and get off the track before the next car arrives. Okay? If he trips, if there's any kind of mishap, it could lead to a catastrophic situation. So Brundle and Crofty will describe this.
So they can hope to find a gap and send somebody out to pick it up. There'll be debris on the track as well for good measure. So this, as you said, Crofty, just neutralises the race rather than closes the pack up. I like your analogy of the Scalextric set, all on the same
piece of track.
Yeah. On the same side of the track.
Which is in effect what it does, I think, for George Russell.
Okay. They use the term neutralises the race. So what we're saying is, under the virtual safety car or under the safety car, it neutralises the race. I.e., there is no race. There is no racing. Cars aren't racing. Neutralised. But you told us that the Belgian parade was a race. Anyway, Jack Aitken has emerged from the pits now, and he is behind Sebastian Vettel. We knew Sebastian Vettel had been lapped. Jack Aitken had already been lapped. He's now been lapped twice. Okay, so we'll carry this on.
So he would much rather have a virtual safety car at the moment than a normal safety car.
And some.
He would not want the pack to close up, but that's why they've thrown that virtual safety car, and this is why it happened. Oh, Jack, don't get out there. He was lucky, that was just the front wing.
It's really hard to see a gap. I mean, there's a gap after Magnussen now, but where is it? I was going to say, there's the replay. I was looking for the wing.
It's there.
Yeah. So there's a gap.
Okay, so you can all see tracker view. You can all see the dots on the screen that these cars are circulating around the track and there's not really a gap. Race control can see this too. All teams can see it. This is the Renault strategists or pit crew, whoever the race engineer is. Look at the screens they're viewing. This is tracker view. They can see where the cars are bunched up. They can see data view. So everybody that's involved in the sport has access to this information.
Gap behind. I can't see a gap out there to put a marshal on the track.
I mean, the lucky thing is that is a marshal's post there where Jack Aitken hit the barrier. So there's not far for the marshals to go to get that win. But
okay, George Russell has now pitted, and you'll see Bottas follow him into the pits because Mercedes double stack. Now, what you'll see at this Grand Prix, when you watch it back, Mercedes messed up with fitting Bottas's tyres onto Russell's car. Then, when Bottas pits, they realise that they're going to put the wrong, well, they do fit the wrong tyres to him. Then they have to take them off and put Bottas's original tyres back on. And then on the next lap, they pit Russell to take the wrong tyres off and put the right tyres on. They completely messed the strategy up, completely get the pit stops wrong. But because Russell has gone into the pits, Gasly is now unlapped. Okay? And you'll see who else goes by whilst the leaders are in the pit.
But you're going to need Usain Bolt to do it safely.
Yeah.
So both Mercedes are in the
safety
pit.
car's been deployed.
Yeah, they have to. I can't see a gap. I can't see a gap in the way the cars are distributed.
Okay, the safety car has been deployed. Both Mercedes are in the pits. Gasly went by Russell. Norris has now gone by Russell and Bottas whilst them cars are in the pits. We know that Fittipaldi has been lapped twice. The next car down the road is Vettel. Does he get past the pit exit before Russell and Bottas come out?
Around the track,
And
they're stacked up.
They're double stacking at Mercedes. The front right tyre was slow for George Russell. And for Valtteri Bottas, even more.
Okay, so we can now see George Russell's dot has just reappeared on track, but Vettel has gone through, so Vettel has become unlapped. Okay, so knowing that Vettel is unlapped, we know that the car behind Russell is Aitken. He's been lapped twice. Giovinazzi, he is also here, but he's one lap down. Okay, so we know from 13th downwards, Giovinazzi plus 1 lap, Magnussen plus 1 lap, Raikkonen plus 1 lap, Fittipaldi plus 2 laps, Aitken plus 2 laps.
Confusion for a crew that are normally very,
they're not
very
happy with the
adept.
left front. They're not happy with his left front.
Well, they double stack. They've reacted really, really quickly, Mercedes, and this is costing Bottas. His brakes are on fire now as well. They had the wrong compound of tyre on, and that's why they couldn't send him out again. But now those brakes are overheating. Bottas needs to get out and get some air through those brakes to cool them down. He has lost track position to Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll.
And there you go, there's Bottas re-emerging from the pits after that nightmare scenario in the pits for Mercedes.
He's gone from 2nd to 5th while all that was happening. You know, we talk about Valtteri Bottas having such bad luck this year in Formula One. There's the latest example.
Well, and he's got a set of hard compound tyres on rather than mediums as well for good measure. And well, that's given George Russell a massive breathing space. Of course, he will have a restart. They will all...
Okay, George Russell's going to have to come back into the pits. Although the safety car was deployed at the start of this lap, the field isn't yet bunching. It takes time.
All now stack up behind George Russell and the safety car. But that's just changed the face of the Grand Prix.
I'm just wondering here, Martin, if they haven't just put the same tyres on Valtteri Bottas.
Note, Sebastian Vettel did not pit, because if he'd have pitted then and the leader had gone by and effectively lapped Vettel, because Vettel's now unlapped. If he'd have been lapped whilst in the pits, he would not have been eligible to unlap. Okay, so they're the sort of scenarios where if you make foolish calls like that, then you're not eligible to unlap. But watch what Russell does.
His car back on again, because he wouldn't have
George,
another
we're going to need to box. We have a mixed tyre set on the car.
Oh no, and that's led to the confusion. In double stacking, they brought out 2 sets of tyres. They've got a mixed set on. This is going to cost George Russell a penalty. Happened to Valtteri Bottas in Spa once.
Yeah, as long.
Okay, now that Russell has pitted, what it means is Aitken is only 1 lap down. However, only 1 lap down in terms of he's a lap and that much behind Perez. He's effectively 2 laps behind, but if he was just behind Perez, it'd be 2 laps down. But he's not been lapped by Perez for the second time, so he's virtually 2 laps down, but not quite. Giovinazzi is no longer lapped. Okay, so the second dot here that's I'm trying to wave my cursor over, this kind of burgundy dot. He has not been lapped because he's just, by Russell pitting, is unlapped Giovinazzi.
As long as you come in and sort it out within 3 laps, I believe it's okay.
Okay.
But basically, what's happened is they've got some of Bottas's tyres on, or indeed all of Bottas's tyres on.
He might still come out in front, you know. Just looking here as Perez. No, he's not going to come out in front because look, there's Perez, there's Ocon, there's Stroll, here's Bottas, here's Russell.
Okay, so from Mercedes running in first and second, they've had that nightmare pit scenario. Russell's had to go in for a second time, and this is how they've emerged. The safety car is ahead of Aitken, the blue dot, and Giovinazzi following him. But the leader is Perez now, who is the 3rd car back behind the safety car.
Yeah, because Russell lost all the time behind the safety car on that lap. He lost so much time just diligently following the safety cars as he's obliged to do. And that's just wrecked his...
And now as the field is starting to bunch, you will see this window of opportunity for marshals to go on track at turn 11. Vettel has just gone by the incident, is now there. Okay, because the rest of the cars are at turn 5, and that will give them around about 25 to 30 seconds to get on the track, to remove that front wing, and to sweep off any carbon fibre as required. Okay, that's what it has actually created for those marshals.
Race.
I was just about to say about Valtteri Bottas's bad luck this season. George Russell's just picked up a chunk and a half.
And you will have just seen Sebastian Vettel has gone into the pits now, because he can pit without worrying that the leaders will overtake whilst in the pits. This is all about strategy. This is what the teams do. They wait till there's a window of opportunity to do that.
For Bottas, bad luck there.
Yeah, 25 laps to go. That's less than 25 minutes.
And so let's see what happened here, Martin. This is George Russell coming in behind the safety car for his first stop. And there's lots
very, very long.
Yeah, the crew having to adjust. Lots of time.
What you're seeing now is Aitken and Giovinazzi appearing to move significantly faster than everybody else. They have been released by the safety car at this point to catch the back of the pack. So the first car behind the safety car is the leader, because they want everybody to bunch behind the leader, and then they will sort out the running order. So they must have had the all clear from the clerk of the course at turn 11 that the marshals aren't on track. So because they're not going to release these two whilst there's men on the track, because that is a dangerous situation. Okay, but it's just Giovinazzi and Aitken have been initially released.
Tyres hanging around there. The call was obviously made late. It's a 2.2 mile circuit.
Oh, some horrible confusion.
Vettel's emerged from the pits, having had a change of tyres. These two cars that have been released are just rounding turns 10 and 11 now. Perez is now the car that's following the safety car.
Going on there, isn't there?
And then I think now they've realised that there is a problem, and they might have sent Valtteri back out on the same tyres. Someone's come out from the garage saying, no, can't put those tyres on. You just got to send him out with what he had on before.
You're right, they put the same ones back on.
Because that was the lesser of two evils, otherwise he's going out with a mixed up tyre set as well.
Yeah.
And you can see everyone's scampering out there. It's hard enough, Martin, to scamper out to service one car, but when you're double stacking at the last minute as well, on such a short lap, Mercedes might think in hindsight that wasn't the best thing to do.
So what they're doing here is covering off a restart behind a safety car, so that they're not on old tyres with people like a Perez behind them, right behind them, on new tyres. But I think...
Okay. Giovinazzi seems to be dragging his heels at the moment, but once he catches up round the back here, you've got Perez, Ocon, Stroll, and then you've got Magnussen. Now, if you look in the running order, Magnussen is 14th, so you can tell he has been lapped. So they're going to need to release the lapped cars, which are 14th downwards, which is Magnussen, Raikkonen, Fittipaldi, and Aitken. There's 4 cars which are now the lapped cars that we will need releasing. Okay.
I think the guy on the left front can probably see that they've got George Russell GR on them rather than VB or something.
All the while, those brakes getting very, very hot indeed. So
this is so un-Mercedes-like, isn't it?
What a race this is now turning.
What you're now going to see is the grey dot of Kevin Magnussen move his way through the field and be released by the safety car. So the announcement will have come to him to actually do that, and will also be given to Raikkonen, Fittipaldi, and Aitken. Now, the actual message given by MASI was for 6 cars, because he included Vettel in that and he included Giovinazzi in that. But as I've shown you, both of them cars became unlapped earlier on. It's not difficult to work this out. When you're just following track of view, you can easily pick up on what is going on. It isn't difficult. And if your job is to look at what's going on, there's 10 FIA officials in that race control area with MASI. It's pretty, if your role is to just keep track on where track cars are on track and what's the positions, what's the order, it's pretty easy. And even if data view is not showing you that, which it actually is, it's not a difficult skill.
Turning into Mercedes problems, and that debrief is now starting. Flip that over. At the end of the first lap, Sergio Perez was in last place. We're on lap 65 behind the safety.
So there's Magnussen been released.
Car. Guess who's leading the race?
On lap 65. Remember that this incident occurred at the end of lap 61.
Sergio Perez, ladies and gentlemen.
So we should have good pace with the new tyre set, So
we're now seeing Kimi Raikkonen's burgundy dot coming down towards turn 10. He's going to be overtaking the field.
Not lost.
So basically, George, you've done really, really well leading this race. You've kept calm, you've kept it under control. What we need you to do now is a bit of overtaking as well. About 4 seasons in.
Fittipaldi and Aitken are still going to need to make it by then. Now, Aitken is by turn 9 and Fittipaldi is just a little bit ahead of him. Okay, so the grey dot of Fittipaldi and the blue dot of Aitken are going to need. Remember, the order from MASI was given on lap 65 to unlap.
In one day, this is every bit of racecraft in one night for George Russell here. But Perez now leads. Esteban Ocon, who's never been on the podium in Formula 1, is second. Lance Stroll is third.
That's a fair comment from Bono there, isn't it? As they let the lap cars go through now, of which there are six of them. Yeah.
And I've just stated to you, it's actually only 4. It's actually only 4.
It's a fair comment of, okay, heads down. You're okay.
And I'll show you the actual banner that got put up for it. It was this. So again, lap 65, lapped cars may now overtake 5, which is Vettel, 7, Raikkonen, 20, which is Magnussen, 51, which is Fittipaldi, 89, which is Aitken, and 99, which is Giovinazzi. And as I say, Vettel and Giovinazzi had become unlapped by the Mercedes cars pitting. So we need to see Fittipaldi and Aitken unlap.
Drop back to 5th place, but you're right in there still, and you've got a fresh set of medium compound tyres.
I remember Ted Kravitz at a race once at Hockenheim when Lewis Hamilton was pitted by McLaren at the wrong stage, and he had to come through from 5th to win it as well, and he did so that day. I wonder what we're going to see from George Russell tonight. Ted, to you.
Well, yeah, but I also remember Monaco when Mercedes made a pit stop that they didn't need to make. They're the only 2 cars in this race, let's face it, for the win, and they could have easily gone to the end on the hard tyre, couldn't they? All right, it might have been tight, and yes, the computer might say pit if there's a safety car, but they didn't really need to pit, did they, if we're honest with each other? But anyway, we'll see what happens after. But Lance Stroll trying to make a one-stop race work on a set of tyres that have done 23 laps on the medium. Should it?
So there's Fittipaldi. We're now looking for the blue dot of Aitken to get by the lead car and the safety car.
At least be straightforward for Bottas and Russell, but it is now Bottas leading Russell after Russell was in command throughout the whole of the first stint.
Just Martin with Perez first and Stroll third. This time last week, Otmar Safnauer left
so
the
this should be a
paddock.
big tyre advantage. I hope so.
Well, because Valtteri's on a blind date with his, isn't he?
Yeah.
What's he got on there?
Okay, and as we can see there, just before the start-finish line, Aitken moves past Perez, and one would assume the safety car as well. This is the end of lap 66. So having been given the order to overtake on 65, it takes until the end of lap 66 until they actually get past the safety car. See, the amount of time that it even takes to actually unlap. And now it means that with this being the end of lap 66, lap 67 must be the mandatory safety car lap, meaning that they can start racing on lap 68. Let's see what happens.
Valtteri on his car has got the hard tyre on that he had.
You know, is that an old girlfriend he carried around earlier on today in the race? Or yeah, it did appear to be the same ones going back on, didn't it? So yeah, George is reacting there with just 20 very short laps left. It's like, look, yeah, I had this race under control. I better have some grip, but racing points down the straight are not going to be that easy to pass.
No, Perez has done 19 laps on those tyres, so it's not a given that he's going to get the best out of them as well. Look what this is doing for Racing Point, though, in the Constructors' Championship.
Wow.
194 points. I said this time last week, Otmar Safnauer left the paddock like someone had just overcooked his favourite burger. Tonight, I think they're perfectly cooking his favourite steak, and a nice bottle of red wine to go with it as well. He will be absolutely delighted at the way this race is turning out. Renault with Esteban Ocon, the joker in the pack of the top 3. He's never finished on the podium before, running in second place.
Yeah, incredible. Now, with this tyre situation, Mercedes can't afford. Let's see how it plays out. But if Valtteri hasn't got the pace on those particular tyres, they need to get Russell straight past him because they can still win this.
Right.
But so can the Racing Point. Oh, brilliant.
Esteban Ocon hasn't been as high as second since 2006.
So, this is the end of lap 67, just about to start lap 68. According to the rules of the sport, you can go racing now. But we don't go racing. Why? Because Michael Massey is exercising 15.3 of the sporting regulations. He is using his overriding authority of the use of the safety car to ensure sporting fairness to all competitors in accordance with the FIA International Sporting Code. So he's done the mandatory safety car lap. Now he's going to keep that safety car out there for a further lap to enable those released cars the opportunity to make it back to the back of the pack. Brundle and Crofty aren't saying anything is wrong with this. They know. The reason they know that it's okay is that they have seen this 3 times before whilst MASI has been race director. This is the 4th time. This is my 4th video showing this same scenario. The 4th time. Twice in 2019, Spain and Brazil, where MASI keeps the safety car out beyond the mandatory lap for a further lap. This is the 2nd time in 2020. We had it at Eiffel in 2020. This is Sakir 2020. The 4th time where there's been a safety car deployment, where there's been lapped cars. And when he's released the lapped cars, he's not only done the mandatory safety car lap, he's kept the safety car out there for a further lap. Now you look at this point in time, you can't tell me that Aitken is interfering with the race between the leaders. He's all the way down at turn 4. There's no way he's interfering with the race between the leaders. That's a fallacy. That's a lie.
17 when he was racing for Force India, who are now Racing Points and who next year are going to be Aston Martin. And his career best finish of 5th that he got in Spa this season, well, now he's in a podium position. Behind that, look how Valtteri Bottas weaving to get the temperature into his tyres. Russell staying quite calm after an accident that was caused by the car that he normally sits in and has cost him the lead of this race.
Yeah, George, they're choosing not to keep his tyres warm. They've got the DAS system, haven't they? The dual axis steering system to warm their fronts up, but he'll need safety cars on this lap, so we're going to need some.
So he's now made the call, safety car in at the end of this lap, because he can see they're all about bunched up. Aitken will be about bunched up by the time they get to the end of this lap, and the whole field will be in a fair situation to resume racing.
Tyre temperature, we're going to need some grip from all of them.
20
This is going to be classic.
I love it. 20 or so laps, ladies and gentlemen. The man who is leaving Racing Point at the end of this season, yet to secure a race seat for 2021, leads this race. The man whose seats that he could get is Alex Albon, who's in 10th at the moment, and there will be many comparisons made between both drivers, I'm sure, at the end of this race. But Perez delivering again.
Close to Perez at the end for the win.
They reckon that Bottas on that side of the Mercedes garage can do it. What are they saying? On the other side, Lance Stroll nearly goes right into the back of Esteban Ocon in a bid to warm up his tyres and his brakes, and he nearly got that all wrong. That might cost Lance.
Okay, and we're just about to start racing, and this is lap 69. Now, lap 61 to 69. It's quite a lot of laps. It's a short lap. So let's not worry about the number of laps because it's an abnormally short lap. The time elapsed between the incident and resumption of racing is approximately 11 minutes. Now, take a look at what happened. Aitken span and his front wing clipped the end of this barrier, leaving the front wing left on track. The car then made it straight across into the pits to change his nose cone. They didn't need to get a crane on track to lift a car out of the way. They didn't need to get the fire extinguisher to extinguish a fire. They didn't need to remove loads of debris off the track. They didn't need to check the barriers to any major degree, because it was quite clear from a visual inspection it was really just the nose cone that was ripped off. It wasn't a substantial impact. So that whole incident was a very, very simplistic clear up, and yet it still took approximately 11 minutes to resume racing from that point in time of the impact. You compare that with Abu Dhabi. We saw a car go into a barrier, significantly go into a barrier. We saw the car catch fire, so therefore we needed a fire extinguisher to extinguish the fire. We needed to get a crane on track to remove the car, and then barriers needed to be checked, and the carbon fibre needed sweeping off the track. MASI got racing going within 10.5 minutes. A far more complex incident, and it took less time to resume racing. And this is the key. If we look at the data view again, look at the intervals between the drivers as the race is restarted. So Perez is leading the race. Second place, approximately half a second behind. Third place, approximately half a second behind second. Fourth place, approximately half a second behind third. Fifth, approximately half a second behind fourth. Sixth, approximately half a second behind fifth, and so on and so forth, all the way down the field. That is the way the race resumes after a safety car incident, with each of them competitors in the same conditions, with the same sporting chance, with approximately half a second between them and the competitor in front, and about half a second between them and the competitor behind, so that they can challenge the person in front but also be liable to being challenged from behind. That's the way it works. That is the purpose of the rules. That complies with the element required for sporting fairness to every competitor. In Abu Dhabi, Max Verstappen was within half a second of Lewis Hamilton on that restart. Carlos Sainz in third was 2 seconds behind Verstappen. He had 2 lapped cars left in situ, and although they would have got blue flags, you are not going to catch the 2-second deficit up in that lap. You are not able to challenge that position ahead of you in the same way that all the other competitors should be enabled to. The tyres is on is irrelevant. The situation has to be the same. Tyres are irrelevant. You have to afford them the same opportunity. He got blocked off. He got held 2 seconds back from being able to challenge for second position in that race. Who has identified that? Who has actually called that out as being a major problem? Hence why that restart was invalid. And that applies to so many of them competitors in that race in Abu Dhabi 2021. This is the 4th time since Michael Massey succeeded Charlie Whiting as race director. This is the 4th time where he has deployed the safety car, where cars have been lapped, that he has made the safety car perform the mandatory lap, and then made it stay out for an additional lap beyond the mandatory lap in order for those lapped cars to catch the back of the pack. That categorically evidences that Massey knows the purpose of the safety car rules. He knows where his overriding authority in terms of his discretionary use of that safety car is, 15.3. And he knows the purpose is not to get those lapped cars out of the way of the race between the leaders, which is what he stated it was for in the Stewards' Appeal at the end of Abu Dhabi, where he lied. And there's still more to come. There is still far more evidence against MASI. See you next time for that one.